I've got really itchy legs today.
Have you?
It's the change of the seasons. I get really dry legs.
Ah.
I'm going to have to go moisturise.
Do you think the seasons have changed?
They're changing, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. We've got daffodils in our...
We've got daffodils in our... ...
Yes.
Whatever you were going to say.
Yes, ours is... yours is more like a forest.
Our garden is a little overgrown. And it's even more so than when you last saw it.
I can imagine.
We have a yew tree.
A yew?
Outside, a yew tree.
Y-E-W.
Yeah, outside of our window.
Is that what they used to make bows out of? No.
I think you can make all sorts out of yew. Yew's a very, very good, wood. It's useful for all sorts of things. But they're massive, massive trees. I mean, huge trees.
How does it fit in because your garden? Let's not. It's not
call
big.
a spade a spade.
Yeah.
No, it's a very small
tiny.
urban plot.
Yeah.
And we put it in when it was probably about hip height.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are they fast growing?
No, I don't think they're that fast, but we've been here for quite a long time now, it would appear. And it was one of the first things we planted, and now it is cresting the roof line.
Wow, and how tall will it get?
Oh, it could get hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds, but like up to a hundred. I don't know. I'm going to have to Google DuckDuckGo or Ecosia how tall yew trees grow.
I worry that you seem to default to Google. Is that
in terms of the language, not in terms of the actual? Yeah, I could show you if you wanted me.
No, I believe you.
My search engine.
We've come this far. I trust you on your.
Yeah. I am DuckDuckGo all the way. If I didn't use DuckDuckGo, I wouldn't know that you can press the button and it uses the flame animation.
Extinguish.
Which I love. I sometimes find myself extinguishing web pages just so I can watch the animation and then immediately regretting it because I realised I actually needed to pay attention to what was on there.
I like that's your approach to research is to collect all these pages and then extinguish them. This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
I just cut my lip on a piece of bread.
Oh.
That's
what?
I know. I'm bleeding. I'm the inside of just on the edge of my lip is bleeding. Just I think the crust punctured it or cut it.
That is awful.
It's a laceration.
That is not good.
Yeah. And so you survived Storm Eunice.
I did, which is no laughing matter, is it? Because I think there were several people who
didn't.
Who had a difficult time of it.
It was mostly trees, wasn't it?
Yeah, tree-related accidents and incidents.
Oh.
Or incidents and accidents, to quote Paul Simon. There were hints and allegations. Oh, we are so old, aren't we? That's our... Oh, yes, let's lead to a 1986 album that was very popular.
I'm sure it was 87. Come on, don't age us that much.
Are you sure?
Oh, no, I'm not.
I'm not. I nearly went with 85, but okay. It was in the mid-80s.
Graceland.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Hey, do you know I had a funny thought? Well, it wasn't that funny, actually.
Oh.
I think this is just to tie... It's a little bit of follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
To tie another bow, a ribbon, to tie a loose end. No, one more thing about ambition.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And recognition.
Mm-hmm.
It was the other day I burst into tears because one of the things I realised is that how much I used to send things to my mother, to Gabriel.
Yeah.
I'd think, Mum will like this, and because I keep going to do that.
Yeah.
But they're rather as the young people would say, rather random. The other thing that occurred to me was because I'd just done this, this thing that I was quite proud of. I would have sent that to her, and she would have I guess you'd say, dutifully watched it, it occurred to me that she was the last person in the world that I could be assured would be proud of what I did. Not that I was seeking kind of affirmation from her, but it was quite a strong, strong feeling, like, regardless of the quality of the thing I did, that she would express pride in that thing. And it was I was quite confronted by this idea, even though it doesn't make any kind of sort of qualitative difference in my life. I miss the idea that she's recognizing that the things I might have done as part of my job or as an artist,
And does that mean that you feel that ambition will continue to diminish, or do you think that you're in a moment of potential upswing where you think, well, actually, I need to be doing this for the joy of, rather than the validation or approval of? And I know not that you were doing it for that, but
but yes, it's a really good question, because I would never have said, never, if you'd asked me, over the last once a month over the last 20 years, have you ever done anything to please your mother? Meaning, making work or anything.
Yeah.
And I would have struggled to go, oh yeah, well, I definitely did that, or there's even a certain part of me is doing that to please my mother, and yet clearly there's an aspect of that that's true, and I wonder to what extent all of us, in some ways, trying to please our parents, and just how strong an idea that is. Like, whoa. But to your question, I don't feel so different in that the idea of doing things for their own sake has long been an important thing to me. I mean, this podcast is a pretty good example, really, aside from the moment when we hit lawyer money.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah, I know. We're just weeks away.
Well, I will say, in a moment of seriousness, our listenership over the last 2 or 3 months has doubled.
Has it really?
On a weekly download, we have doubled our listenership. Now, we could say that's because we didn't have a lot of listeners to begin with and laugh, or we could just go, actually, that's not true. We had a decent number, and that's doubled on the weekly downloads. And what's interesting is it's not, because I'm telling Simon this because Simon has made a decision not to pay attention to stats, which I think is really helpful. And I don't mean to, but I have the weekly email that tells me what's happening.
Do you?
I do, and I look at it. It hasn't been sent to my junk folder, and we've had a doubling of weekly downloads, and half of those are the new episode each week, but the other half are people going back through the back catalogue, and so kind of coming across the
archive,
the archive, and what's also fascinating is, as a result of that, I can then look at where people are in the world. How did somebody in Hawaii find us? And so, sincerely and genuinely, to those listeners who don't know us...
And who are in Hawaii...
You. Well, no, they don't have to be in Hawaii. They can be in Cambridgeshire. I don't really care where they are. But to those listeners who don't know us, who don't have any direct connection to Simon or myself, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us, because it's
humbling.
Yeah, I didn't realise quite how much it meant to me, and that's not, I think, the same as...
seeking
ambition,
approval from your parents.
But because this is being thrown into a void, isn't it? It's been thrown into a vacuum. We didn't know who or how or why people would listen,
and we still don't really.
No,
it is that. Yes, go on.
I was going to say, except our ULs and FLs.
Yes, of course. How could we forget them?
Especially our FLs and our VFLs.
Oh, our very faithful listeners. Wow, there's a new category.
There's a new category of people who self-identify as VFL.
They've self-identified.
They will remain nameless, but you know who you are.
Wow.
But I sort of...
Can we get Uber faithful listeners there? Anyway.
UFLs as opposed to
UFOs.
That's too confusing. I'm sorry, I sort of knocked you off because I wanted to just take that moment of not feeling that we were about to accidentally belittle
lawyer
the
money.
people. Well, no, the belittle the investment other people have made in the podcast rather than our investment.
No, and not at all. And also, just it's a remarkable thing that people would think what we have to say is something they want in their life. I don't like to think about it too much, actually, because it.
You don't.
I find it like that's why the lawyer money thing is a joke, because it's because I just think I'm having a conversation with you.
And I think that's good, because we don't want to get involved in the Joe Rogan of it all, do we?
Well, it depends on how far you want to go back into a back catalogue and the kinds of words we used to use in our back catalogue.
I think you can go all the way back and be pretty confident that we're not such egregious arseholes. I mean, arseholes, yeah. Egregious,
I don't think of him as an egregious arsehole. I really don't.
Don't you?
No, I don't. I don't.
Wow, I do. I do unproblematically think the man is a massive fucking cock. No, that's not fair.
I like that he created more problems for Brene Brown's relationship to Spotify than anything else. I like the way she sort of ummed and ahed, and she took herself off air, and she realised that her lawyers must have spoken to her and said, "No, you've contracted to do these things."
Yeah.
She tried to sort of play the moral high ground. I found it a little bit rich, frankly.
Yeah,
she should have thought about that before she took the
The
millions.
money. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah. Also, I think platforms are agnostic in their in their approach, aren't they? They're businesses. They're not the BBC, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And even the BBC isn't the BBC.
And we forget that. I think we forget that too easily. That actually their job is to make money.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why I think the Culture Secretary's decision to sort of pause the potential increase of license fees in this country is a really terrifying idea.
Oh yeah, they're really having a
public discourse.
Good go at the BBC, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and I know we just seem to constantly rail on this particular administration.
Lee's just had to cut out a joke of mine so that it doesn't appeal to too many
just
Joe
to be
Rogan's
clear,
other listeners.
if you wanted to hear the joke, you can go back to an early episode and you will hear Simon say it where I didn't cut it out. However, I think once can be considered accidental.
Hey, wait, did I say it before?
Yeah, you have said it before.
It's just that you know what I like about it? Oh, shall I just stop?
Yeah, just stop.
Yeah.
Because my scissors are only so sharp. But yeah, so that idea of platforms having a job to do, and I think in the UK we've gotten so used to the idea of the BBC trying so hard to be impartial to the point that it twists itself into incredibly uncomfortable knots.
The gymnastics are extraordinary these days.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not the right, it's not the left. It sort of gets it really can't win.
And if you watch like an episode of Question Time, you can sort of see, oh, this is just not serving anybody in this moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we wandered off what you were seriously talking about.
Yeah, just approval. Approval, yeah. And so that's to go circle very directly back to your question, just in case you wanted to cut all of that out, is, yes, I think there's something about the inherent or the intrinsic value of doing things which has compelled me for a long time. And perhaps I think it would be easy to say I'm released from the last traces of trying to please someone with Gabriel's death. But I think that is just a little bit too easy because I wasn't feeling that. But it's curious to still then notice the feeling. If you understand, there's something slightly paradoxical about that. But yeah, I think in terms of my age and I think it's it's an overwhelmingly beautiful thing, whilst also terribly sad. You know, it's I was listening to something else last night, which was some young podcaster who was going on about, he's just about to turn 40, and he was just going on about, that's it. He's I've been quite successful, and I think I'm not going to get any more successful. And I was like, wow, it's really weird to listen to this dude. Total dude. I use that word in the most foul sense of the word, and talk like that. I was like, wow, it's really strange. Really strange to talk about, our lives as if there's a peak and then a decline, and maybe maybe there is. Anyway, I'm rambling.
I don't think you are rambling, and it's interesting because in a way, did that thing I did that thing where I said it's interesting, and it might not be. It might be boring.
We should really leave that up to the
ULs, FLs, and the VFLs.
Oh,
Absolutely.
It's just, I'm never going to remember all these acronyms. It's like being in a meeting sitting in a staff meeting.
I know.
Oh,
it
please
really is,
save me from the
Somebody-
freaking acronyms.
Somebody got quite heated in a meeting not long ago about the lack of HECOS codes on that page, and I was just giggling.
Well,
'cause I was
ECOS.
Like, no, HECOS, HECOS. And I was like, I could ask, I could Google it, or I could recognise that in 5 minutes, nobody will give a shit. You can get as angry as you want, mate. So you do you, and I'm just going to smile.
It's going to be the acronym HECOS will be in the show notes. Just for those of you, I imagine probably
actually,
the VFLs
I'm going
are really
to
like
actively suggest
the
to Simon,
completists.
it will not be in there because if anybody is listening to this who is interested in what HECOS might mean, they already know. And if they're not interested, they're not interested. Anywho, we were, before we surprisingly unsettled ourselves.
That was just follow up, wasn't it?
It was a follow-up. But I then used the word interestingly and then corrected myself. But I was thinking about something similar in terms of a follow-up. And it was sort of in relationship to Storm Eunice, which you referenced earlier on, before Paul Simon knocked us off course.
Paul Simon always does that. And I'm not going to let you finish, but just so that people who are not in this part of the
Kanye.
world... well, that is a deep cut for me. Sorry, you've crossed the line there.
I'm going to let you finish.
Yeah, and
okay, sorry.
And yeah, Storm Eunice. Just this we're recording on a Saturday morning, the day after this rather large storm across the United Kingdom, and things got knocked around. It was pretty windy. It's fair to say.
It's jumped over to mainland Europe on the Saturday that we're recording, and it's causing havoc over on mainland Europe today.
I'm very glad I wasn't in an airplane trying to land at Heathrow yesterday.
Gosh,
boy, watching those planes.
I think there were quite a few cancellations. As listeners know, at the moment, I work in the northwest of England, although
for the moment,
very much longer.
A job a day keeps the doctor away for Lee Miller.
And I would just like to reiterate, I've had a lovely time in my job. I've met some incredible people.
You're saying this because they listen, right?
One of them does. She knows who she is, and I want her to know she's moved from colleague to friend.
And she should write in with HECOS, but not the real one.
She knows what HECOS is.
Yes, I don't want the real one.
She was definitely one of the people in the meeting who also wasn't bothered.
A HECOSonian.
She's a HECOSonian. But I travel from, that means that at the end of my working week, I travel from the northwest to the southwest of England, which is between a 4 and a 5 hour journey, depending on traffic. Actually, it can be between a 4 and an 8 hour journey, depending on traffic, but usually between 4 and 5. And I had so many text messages of support yesterday saying, I hope you make it home safe.
Oh.
Because people knew that I was travelling yesterday and I would be travelling through red weather warnings. I was expecting to be buffeted. And while I saw aftermaths, and I did have some kind of blowy moments, so I saw a tiny moment of something quite scary, but for the most part, it was a relatively uneventful journey.
So you're it was like you're on the edge of it, or
yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like I was on the edge of it, and I got home, and actually the most damage I saw was in the churchyard across the road from the house, where a portion of tree had come down. And then I woke up this morning, and the world was so bright so still, and I started to think about the future. And I started to think about the relationship between sort of systems, and I was thinking about at what point do we pretend that these weather systems are naturally occurring phenomena rather than phenomena that human behaviour has intervened into, that we live in the era of the Anthropocene now, where our behaviours have, impacted upon geological ages. So there's that bit of my head, and I was just thinking about the short-termism of I won't have to do that journey for much longer because I'm going to be moving to a new job. And then I thought, I wonder if this will be my last job. Is this the job that I will retire from? And then I thought, it's coming to a question.
I love it. I just so love the idea that you think this could be your last job. Given your track record.
Hey, my track record in the relatively short period of time. Before
teasing.
then, it was 12 years. So, 12 years from now,
Yeah.
I will be retirement age.
No. You're not even close. You're not even 50.
Yeah, I want to retire young.
Yeah, with all that lawyer money from midlifing.
With all the lawyer money.
Hang on, but how old are you again? 49.
48.
See, 49 this year. 49 in
in
July.
August.
Faithful listeners.
August.
Sorry, Bob.
Bob is July.
Yeah.
Easy mistake to make.
Yeah. Get to the question. No, okay, so this could be your last job.
No. So if this is my last job, and then I was starting to think about, well, what would retirement look like? And then I thought, that immediately made me jump to, I wonder what Simon's plans for retirement will be. And then the next bit was immediately, how does Simon hold retirement in his head, given his anxiety about climate change and the future of the planet? So that's sort of where that's how I got to. How do you conceive of your future when you're worried about drowning in plastic?
I would have, maybe you could have led with, what's your favourite colour? Green. That question, Lee. I think I'm interested in two things. One, that comes from off the top of my head. One is quite clearly, what's the lightest footprint I could possibly have, for these remaining, years of my life. 20 years, I reckon. More, perhaps 25 years. Plus 25 would be, that would be pretty lucky, I reckon. If I made it to 80, I'd be pretty chuffed.
When you said that number, I had a
little moment.
It wasn't a little moment, it was a big moment. I've been with Bob for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the idea that, and I feel as if Bob and I only just met.
Yeah.
So the idea of the less than the length of time Bob and I have known one another being what you have left and probably what I have left on the planet just made me go, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that doesn't I don't feel like that, I have to say. So yeah, that's one thing. Like how little might I require in order to live on this planet? And I don't mean that. That's not to say that other people should choose that or anything like that. It's just for me that seems like and it's also I tend towards minimalism. No,
and just to clarify, when you say little, you're talking here about, you're not talking about a kind of a financial nest egg. You're talking about the sort of the size of everything.
Yeah. I mean, but that would relate to a financial, what do you call it, nest egg?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's much more about footprint, as they say, or as I read the other day, they talk about shadow. They talk about a carbon footprint, and then there's also this idea of a carbon shadow, which is much, much longer. This thing that sort of like a tail. And so, yeah, that certainly, and I find that difficult. That just in general, just when I buy stuff, I just think, I'd really like to buy something. Like I'd like to buy, it would just be awesome to be able to buy my last pair of shoes and to think, okay, this is, like your last job. These will be last pair of shoes. I do have a jacket. Like I do have some clothes where I'm never going to have to replace that. And then I've lost track of this. The second thing was, it's just, I'm really interested in the notion of craft. What is it that I can get good at and to be busy with that's somehow contributing something of value to the world? So yeah, and that to me, I think that would be enough to sustain me and would feel incredibly, nourishing, and also minimizing the extent to which I'm contributing to extracting stuff from the planet. But what about you?
There's a version of my retirement that is kind of quiet southwest town, slowly sliding into old age, which I see around me all the time. I've got the version living in rural Portugal, which again my parents did from their mid-60s and now in their early 80s. So I can see that version for myself. And then there's the place in Lisbon, which is weird because Bob and I have never lived full time in a city.
Oh, yes, you've
for
said
very
that.
long.
Yes.
We've lived in Manchester briefly. We lived in Newcastle briefly.
Oh, that's right, I forgot that. But what does that all mean in terms of what you see, what kind of life? Because that's what I understood the sort of main part of your question to me to be, in a way.
Yeah. That was my question for you. What do you think your life will look like? So to kind of to not answer your question that I've asked you,
continue not answering.
I can't imagine. I struggle to know what my retirement will look like because it all feels a bit fizzy at the minute. Because it's kind of like it feels like it's going to be really busy, just moving between places, hoovering multiple front rooms, and going, "Oh my god." I've got to get back there. Why? I haven't dusted. So there's that sense that,